Hey, hey,
Hey!
how's it going?
Doing good. Showcasing a tremendous amount of skill. My chat's very proud of me.
it's look, CE's a bit it's of its time, you know.
I'm
There's
enjoying it. I think it's a good game.
no, yeah, it is great, but it's definitely little things that you know they haven't aged all that well. I still think it's great, but
I do like the Scorpion tank having the like fire variants of like a musket, you know, or maybe like like a lead ball filled, put in a tin can with some gunpowder in it. You know, it's phenomenal accuracy on this thing.
oh yeah.
How you
How
doing?
long?
I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, I think the last time was during the last time you did something like this. Actually, I think you were doing it must have been like another 24-hour stream, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it would have been. I think timing wise, my guess would be PCRF, the Palestine Children's Relief Fund.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
Yeah, that
playing a
sounds
bunch
right.
of like Nintendo 64 games, which was a lot of fun. I was also better at those than this. God damn it! I'm dropping the Scorpion here. Holy shit! I'm such a big target. Or at least I'm gonna clear this area without it. You're a Halo super fan, right? That's what chat keeps telling me.
Yeah, yeah. I've dabbled. I have a lot of videos on it. At this point, it's tricky. I feel like I am, but also lately, not so much. You know. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, I've lived long enough to see all of my favorite things kind of get worse.
Well, the
And
most recent one was Halo Infinite, right? I've just seen the Donkey video. That's the open world one, correct?
yeah, and it's fine. It's just it's never gonna be this again. You know.
Because Bungie left it. They went on to do the live service Infinite grind Destiny game, and now
Yeah,
343
yeah.
does this.
Yeah, they Microsoft like cobbled together a kind of a studio really quickly to kind of handle it, and I don't know, they've not fucked everything up necessarily. It's just like a lot of choices I just don't fully understand. But these are still some of the best, I think, even with their datedness.
Well, you can tell me the choices. I want to know what they fuck up in the later ones.
I mean, I feel like a big one was art direction. That was a pretty universal one that was a pretty universal thing that everybody kind of felt was just it got a lot more generic, and I don't even know necessarily how to quantify that with words. It's just kind of you look at screenshots and comparisons and you just sort of notice there's just kind of like a lack of imagination, or things look a little bit too like what we thought the future would look like a long time ago, whereas like this doesn't really feel like the future necessarily. Outside of like the aliens like being there, like the tanks like the tanks are still on treads, and cars are like still use tires. There's not like hover cars and shit.
Yeah, no,
But
they go for like the gritty industrial military futurist look with the humans.
yeah,
Where everything's
it's
pretty blocky.
it's more 80s like Alien kind of Ridley Scott inspired, I guess, like more industrial.
Yeah, Alien.
Whereas the later ones get a
film
little
known
bit more
for having really good design that everyone loved.
yeah, exactly. And the later ones feel a little bit more like, if you go into a lab in the later ones, it's like, it's white walls and like everything's white and everything's sterile, and it's like I get it, but it's I don't know.
The feeling that I got, because I've never been a Halo fan really, but everyone who plays video games heard about the 343 thing when it happened. One of the main things that I know about the switchover was that they introduced a new big universe ending bad with like these skull lads who want to exterminate all life in the universe or whatever. I don't know which game that was, but I saw the trailer that reveal was made in, and I distinctly remember feeling like Halo looking an awful lot like Mass Effect.
No, yeah, exactly. It started to look like that was 4. That was the first 343 one.
Okay, well then there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of it, where it started to look like it just started to look like a bunch of other things. And that's not necessarily to say that, Combat Evolved through 3 are particularly, they definitely borrow a lot from other sources, but I feel like most people, even in just meme circles or just like on Twitter, you see an image of something from like those classic games and you kind of get it, like you know where it's from, like it has a very strong silhouette or there's like a very iconic simplicity to it.
Oh, it's super easy to pick out Halo from other games. Why did I just do that? Why did I just jump off the edge? It's super easy to pick out Halo from other games. At least the earlier Halo games. You know, maybe not so much for the newer stuff. Also, I know they made Cortana evil at some point. That was a development that happened. I remember that.
Yeah, this is a lot sadder. This is a lot. It's more depressing of a conversation than I was anticipating to have. But yes,
oh yeah, it's fine. I completely get it, right? We've all seen this happen with franchises we care about. I totally understand.
I feel this is how I feel like whenever Batman fans or like comic book fans talk about like this is what's happening with the MCU or whatever. It's like it's terrible, and I'm like calm down, and then this conversation happens, and it's like I get it, I understand, I feel it in my heart.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a series that I think I felt that way about the Civilization series. A lot more nerdy and niche, but like Civ.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, Civ 1 through 4. It was the one unit per tile rule. They had a good thing going, and they were like, you know, we want more poppy, like, you know, distinct visual design, so we're gonna have one tile per unit, and that's it. And it cut down a ton of strategy, and Civ 5 sucked, but they're never going back. So like, I just have to live with it now, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of, you've reached acceptance, which is good. I'm still climbing to acceptance.
Oh hey, on the plus side, you know, Halo does still have the small achievement of being maybe one of the most influential pieces of media, like ever. Like in terms of
true,
game inspiration, Jesus Christ, everything else has been shaped by it. So you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little silly to whenever people are like, oh, this because the newer thing sucks, it ruins the older. I never really understood that. Like, if anything, it makes me appreciate the older ones a lot more, because it's like, oh man, it must have been really hard to do this.
I think you can do that narratively,
apparently.
maybe. Like with Game of Thrones, which because the ending made the whole series feel like a waste. But that's more of like a narrative thing, whereas the first Halo games were kind of, you know, self-justifying. They weren't all like predicated on the build-up, you know.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh man, Game of Thrones. That's such a. You know what's wild? I remember people talking to me about. I still have never seen a single. All right, that's not true. I saw the last episode of Game of Thrones, and that was it. That's the only piece of Game of Thrones media that I've ever witnessed.
That's when you jumped in?
I'm not. So I heard, like, I was hearing about it for years. I was like, man, this show is apparently really good. But I'm really stubborn with that shit. Where like I just, if a show has gone on for a long time, I want to make sure that it's worth finishing before I jump into it.
That is insane. That is an insane thing to do. I really respect it.
I can't sit there, because I did it with Better Call Saul, right? Where like Better Call Saul, because I loved Breaking Bad, and that was another one where I only got into it after like the final season airing on AMC, and it's like, all right, I guess I'll watch it now. But Better Call Saul, I was like, oh, I know that shit. I know Breaking Bad. I'll watch it from the beginning. And then season 1 happened, and then it was like another year and a half by the second season. And by the time the second season happened, I forgot, literally, like, I forgot everything. And so I was just like, oh, this is just going to keep happening. I'm just going to wait. And that's what I did with Game of Thrones. And then I started hearing like, oh, this last season was kind of, and I was like, oh, really? And then the last season was so terrible, apparently. I don't know. That it just sort of ruined it for everybody, and I was like, well, I'm glad I didn't fucking watch it then. I don't know.
I actually got the best possible experience because I watched the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, which are actually pretty great. And season 5 is when everyone agrees it took like a huge dip in quality, and I just never saw it. And then when the whole drama around the finale came out and everyone was like, yeah, if you just stopped watching around season 4, that's like the best possible experience you could have gotten. I was just like, oh, great. Nice. That worked out in my favor. The last thing I remember was, what was it? Oberyn Martell getting squashed like a tomato. That's the last thing I remember. Everything after that, I think it was downhill from there.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know who any of those people are. But
well, Oberyn Martell could get some, okay? He was He could fuck, so he was a good character, you know, when he was around. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think also I'm just kind of, at that point in time, I think I was a little bit burned out of fantasy stuff. I'm not sure why. I think I was just like playing a lot of, I think it was like playing a lot of fantasy like video games and shit. And like by the time a show came out, I was like, I'll just play this. I'm set.
Fucking overburnt. Man, it's like the comic book industry, right? Where like every movie now is superheroes. Everything.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like all the nerds got made fun of up through the 80s and up. So now that they're in charge, or at least now that they're, you know, a monetizable demographic, it's everything. Everything is sci-fi. Everything is fantasy. Everything is superheroes. And that's it, you know? I honestly think this is part of the reason why Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul not only were really good, but also remembered so fondly. It's because it's one of the few culturally relevant pieces of media we can pull from the recent past that aren't fucking sci-fi, fantasy, or superheroes, and are therefore like distinct in our minds, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's a huge reason. A huge reason why, because I have these, because I know a lot of people who are like really, you know, and I used to watch the Marvel movies. I was into it for at least up until Endgame, where I was like, okay, this has a conclusion. Now I'm set. That was a cool little like cinematic experiment that they did there, and that was neat. And I can't get into them anymore, and I think it is just an oversaturation issue. And it's like, I've had people be like, oh, you just don't. It's almost like people assume a pretentiousness about it, where it's like, oh, you just because something isn't like heady doesn't mean it's not great, or just because something's about superheroes doesn't mean and it's not necessarily about that. It's more like I saw Bullet Train recently, and I thought it was dope, and that's a ridiculous fucking movie, but it's also not like, I don't know, it's not a superhero movie, you know what I mean? It's dumb fun action, but it's not predicated on these like overwrought IP.
No, yeah,
You know?
and well, I stopped watching Marvel movies after Endgame because I felt like they did it. I mean, the entire thing, all the way back from like Iron Man 1, or at least Avengers 1, was all building to Thanos. So then Thanos happened, and you know, cool. Like, I mean, it was all like designed by committee shit, right? Like, it was never artistically daring or in that way, but they were fun to watch and impressive for their scope, and like that's it. It's done, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they can pull out of their hat next that could even compare, really, as like a broad MCU capper. I mean, what do you have, like Galactus? They're not gonna do fucking Galactus. That's stupid. You can't even fight him. He's too big. I genuinely have no idea. But it's frustrating too, because now it feels like every piece of media has to be horned into that. It's the same with the Star Wars shit. I'm really bored of Star Wars spin-offs. They say Andor is good. They said Mandalorian was good. It's like everything now, you know? It's all Disney. There's no escape.
Star Wars, it's weird. I always, maybe this is just me, because I feel like I get introduced to things like way late. Like, I didn't watch Lord of the Rings until like maybe like the mid 2010s. I didn't watch Star Wars until, I didn't watch any Star Wars movie until like 2017.
What?
Yeah, I avoided it. I avoided it entirely. I don't know how.
No, how? How?
You know
At
what it
no
is?
point?
No, well, at no point did I have friends who were like super into it to drag me to it. And well, I guess there were like video games like KOTOR and stuff, and I played the video games, right?
Yeah.
But as a cinematic universe, like I had already kind of, I don't know, by the time I was old enough to care about that stuff, I think I had experienced like Mass Effect and Halo and like Firefly, and like I was kind of set on sci-fi for a while, and I just didn't feel the need to go exploring in it. And I'm kind of glad, not necessarily that, like, because I watched them later, and I do like the originals, and I even think the prequels aren't necessarily horrendous, but I don't know. It kind of goes back to the Halo thing, where it's like I'm glad I only have one thing that I had to watch get exponentially worse. as opposed to having like several of these.
As opposed to literally everything you enjoy falling down. Yeah. It's because everything has to be franchised now, right? The original Lord of the Rings movies were really, really good. And I hear the books are good. I haven't read them, but I mean, they're one of the most popular pieces of literature in history, so I have to assume they're decent. And then the movie trilogy was great. But the Hobbit series fucking sucked. Like, I think...
Oh my god.
Yeah, like...
Yeah.
Really bad. And now they have the TV show, which... I know it's like a culture war thing, where like the far right or conservatives are going to scream because there's like a black chick or whatever. And then because the far right is doing that, the left is going to be like, actually, it's better than you think. But I've seen it, at least.
Oh my god, no, this is exactly what happens. I'm so tired. Like, every time there are times where I'm watching like older television shows or like older movies, and I'll notice something, and I'm like, oh man, if this came out today, there would be a whole stink about it, because this female character is like showing up the male hero, or some other random trope that's been around for fucking eons.
God, like Avatar: The Last Airbender is a huge one. The first... Have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah, because the first episode, the first lines almost, are Sokka getting chewed out by Katara for being a sexist. And a bunch of the episodes are like, essentially like liberal to left liberal talking points, like hashed through the show. Like, they would have torn it to shreds if this had been like a post-Gamergate thing, but it was before Gamergate, so now the right kind of looks at that and they're like, ah, well, that's different.
Yeah,
it is. It doesn't. It's like, oh, is it? You know?
It's very exhausting to like criticize media now in a way that it didn't used to be. Like, I feel like it used to be a little bit more predicated on the actual... I mean, obviously, there's always opinions. Nothing's objective. Like, no criticism is necessarily objective in here. But I feel like it had a little bit more standing in, like, reality, whereas, like, now it's always... Like, everything new that comes out is always under the lens of this fictional... Like, this entirely nonsensical fight between things... Like, I just... Oh man, I'm getting frustrated.
No, I completely agree. It's all culture war shit now. There's very little... The only, like, real analysis you can get for media consumption anymore is in stuff that's not popular enough to catch the public eye. Because outside of that, there are a million factions. And I know there always have been, but, like, man, fuck. It's like MCU people are like K-Hive on Twitter. They get really mad at the idea that like, the MCU is, like, a cultural, artistic black hole. The right gets angry literally anytime anything happens, no matter what. I get, like, what media do they even like? I don't fucking know. And like the left, and then on, like, reciprocally, to be fair, like with the left too, it's, I don't know how often I'm hearing about shows that are good and how often I'm hearing about shows that are woke. Like with Andor, for example, people keep saying it's good. Is it? I don't know, because I know that Andor has left-leaning political themes. Which means that when people in my chat say, no, Andor is really good, I don't know if they mean that the quality of the show is high, or if they mean that there are people who say, fuck the police in Andor. I don't know, and I can never trust them.
No, that's exactly... I think people like, more than ever, to be kind of cheerleaded, too, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like people like, now, more than they used to, the idea that the media that they like is... reflecting their own opinions back at them in some way or another, where I feel like it used to be a little bit more, I think about Bioshock a lot, right? Because Bioshock is I don't know if you've ever played Bioshock.
Oh, I love Bioshock, yeah.
Bioshock is one of my favorite games ever. I have a tattoo. I have a Bioshock tattoo. I love Bioshock.
Oh, what?
It's just the chain link on the wrist. It's the wrist tattoo that Jack has throughout the whole game.
No, the legit, like, beyond even like the libertarian critiques or whatever, the original Bioshock is like a fucking masterpiece of storytelling, dude. Many other games have tried to hit that beat and flopped completely. Yeah, no, there are so many. They're working on a Bioshock movie too, by the way, which is fucking. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's a game that literally can't be a movie. Like, the whole, like, all the power.
Yeah.
It's very dumb, but but that's a game that's like, obviously that's very rooted in, the Ayn Rand Like, it's very rooted in the philosophy of Atlas Shrugged. And, you know, it's not even necessarily like you could delve into that game in a lot of ways. You could have a lot of conversations about what it's trying to say, like what it means. And it's not necessarily just there's no character in Bioshock that is clearly meant to be like the good guy explaining to you what you should agree with as well. You know what I mean? Like it's very much like, here's a world rooted in this philosophy and let's see how that plays out to the absolute like extreme, and let's have fun with that.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that really gets left behind in like the analysis, I think, is that the game is broadly critical of Ayn Rand. That's like the through line, you know. But there's a lot of other shit that hits there, like the great man theory of social analysis and the idea of like sort of a Nietzschean Übermensch like supremacy. The idea of like the greatest people in society have to be given the room to succeed, and everyone else is just like meant to be a foundation to support them. And there is like, you know, some give and some take in there, right? Because to be fair, Rapture is objectively technologically superior to every other part of the world at the time you arrive there.
Right.
They did accomplish a lot. Obviously, they did it in a super fucked up way, but like the question is like, the thing that I like about it is, even given what they were able to do, like, was it worth it? You know? And I think most people will come away from that thinking like, fucking no, absolutely not, it wasn't.
Yeah, of course.
But they give the hand, you know? They give the hand. And this is one of the things that fucks me up a little bit about Bioshock Infinite, where the society they portray, you know, America in the clouds or whatever, there's not as much ambiguity because the only ideological through line they're criticizing there is like white supremacy, which isn't even tied to how they were able to build the city in the clouds. Like, there's no relationship there. It wasn't even like, oh, they were able to do all this with slavery. They just did it and also are racist, which is like, so
yeah.
If you just removed the racism, would they have been the utopia then? Right? It's like, so what's the lesson, you know?
Yeah. Bioshock Infinite's a weird one. I love Bioshock Infinite for a lot of reasons, but I do agree that thematically speaking, it's a lot more flimsy than the original Bioshock for sure.
Great to play though. Fuck, that game's fun to play. Holy shit.
I feel like the only person who thinks that.
It feels
every time
great.
I talk about the game, people are like, that game sucks, and I'm like, have you not like jumped off the skyhook and like landed a punch into someone's face and then telekinesis them off a building? Like, I don't know. I feel like people are just bad at games, to be honest.
As a game, it's like it's stellar. In terms of just purely like mechanically. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to say before I like totally ramble off. It's just that the way everything has to be made into a franchise now, you know? The other big kicker for that is that it's like the quality drop-off feels so much more harsh. Like, with that Lord of the Rings show, which I haven't seen, you know, I don't know if it's good or bad or whatever, but in order for a Lord of the Rings show to look good next to the trilogy, it has to be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So even if it's good, it's not good. And it makes everything look so much like harsher in comparison, and it really stifles new IPs that could, I don't know, maybe have done a lot better without the burden of that association.
Oh yeah, no, this happens a lot in video games and in movies and television, where like a script will come to a producer's desk and they'll be like, "This is a great script. How can we put Daredevil in it?"
Yeah, exactly. We're
Like,
Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, for real. Like this happens like the example, or the most recent example that I know a lot about is, are you familiar with the game Prey at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably know, but like that game has nothing to do with the original Prey, like at all. Like Prey was a 2006 game that was about like Native Americans and portals. It was weird.
But they had to slap like, oh yeah, the great game idea you have there. You know, let's just search through the archive of IPs we own. You know.
Yeah, it was literally just like, this is great, but this can't be an original IP. We need to attach it to a name, and the one they had was Prey. And it has nothing to do with Prey. Prey is never mentioned. There's no connection. It's literally just the name because no one would have paid attention to it. And the problem that arises from that is people who wanted more Prey got a game that wasn't Prey and therefore hated it. And people who would have been interested in something else didn't care because it was Prey.
Which is really annoying because Prey 2017 rocked. That game fucking good.
I played that recently because I tried it when it first came out and it didn't. I don't know. It didn't. Have you ever played a game and you're just like, oh, this isn't working, and then you come back to it and you're like, this is amazing?
First time I played Deus Ex, yeah. First time I just didn't get it. I was like, why the fuck am I booming out right now? And then a couple years later, I came back and I was like, what? Wait, hello? And that I just enjoyed the best game, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what happened to me with Prey. I tried it and I was like, this is, I don't know. I think I was trying to play it like it was like a Fallout adjacent game, and I just like, this isn't. I'm not getting it. And then somebody was like, hey, there's a System Shock demo out or something. And I played that and it suddenly like clicked. It's like, Prey is a System Shock game.
Yeah, they made System Shock. Yeah.
And then once I understood that and played it, it was like so much. I was like so much more into it. It's crazy. And it sucks that's like an all-time fucking fantastic game, Prey 2017. And it sucks that it's hampered by that name, or it didn't get a fair shot because of that. If that was called like, I don't know, something Shock. I don't know if they have the rights to be able to do that.
Like Psycho Shock or something.
Yeah, Psycho Shock. Like that would have been a fucking huge game, I think.
God, if they could have gotten, if that team had been able to knock it with System Shock 3, if they'd been given the go-ahead with that label, holy fuck. That could have been, like, not to say everything has to be franchised like we were talking about, just saying, like, I feel like in that instance, they could have done it, you know?
Yeah, well, the thing about Shock is it's not even like Shock is like a genre at this point, you know what I mean? It's like immersive sims.
Yeah, like Bioshock, you know, it's not a direct sequel.
Yeah, but, oh man, what a good fucking title.
Have you played the original System Shock games?
I tried. So that's one of the reasons why I got into Prey was like I was playing I think there was a demo for
System Shock 1 remake. Yeah.
System Shock 1 remake, and I played that and I thought it was cool. Like I liked it. I was like, oh, this is I like the art style. I like the inventory management. I like how this is set up. This is interesting. But I haven't gone back and played the older ones in their original form to completion because they're kind of. They're really old.
Yeah.
And the controls the controls are wild on a modern setup, to say the least. I'm waiting for the remake, and I think it'll probably be pretty decent. But I'm waiting for that just to have a simpler way to play it, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh god, sorry, I'm getting strafed. Oh fuck. The second System Shock game, I still think feels pretty good if you get the right port for it, like off GOG or whatever. I played it recently, and once you rebind the controls, I think it plays pretty well because it came out about the same time as Halo 1 did. So you're talking like comparable, you know, attitude.
Oh yeah, no, it's literally all in the port and the controls, which I'm so lazy with. Like I don't even really rebind controls when I play games generally. Like I'm just like, all right, they designed it this way, I'll try it this way.
As opposed to the games where back in the day when A and D would turn rather than strafe, and you'd like throw up in your mouth.
That's different.
Yeah, that's objectively incorrect.
But that at that point, like that to me is like, you've gotten this so wrong that I'm probably just gonna wait for someone to fix this.
Yeah, oh god, man, the controls for System Shock 1, which like I don't know if you've seen what it looks like on in a YouTube video, but System Shock 1 looked like a graphing calculator. It was so old. And
yeah, you can play it on a Tamagotchi. It's fucking it's wild.
And the controls, it's like every button on the keyboard is bound to something, and you have I swear to God, it genuinely plays more like a typing tutorial. You gotta stretch your fingers to reach every fucking part of that keyboard to be able to play that game. Yeah, I hope the remake's a lot more accessible. I guess it will be from what I've seen, because the original was pretty janky in that way.
Yeah, no. I mean, from the demo that I played, I thought it was pretty solid. It's got a really cool style to it as well.
Yeah, very.
But I'm also not necessarily. Yeah, it's very synth. It's not necessarily unique, but it's also like a remake of an old game that kind of had a hand in creating that. So I don't necessarily mind it.
Yeah. I wonder. Do you know of any games that have basically done Halo but aren't Halo? Like in the way that you like. I mean, the original stuff.
No, it's really difficult to find a compare. There are games recently like that get multiplayer kind of close. There's that game Splitgate that was advertised as like kind of Halo and Portal kind of put together.
The one where you can like do trick shots by putting a portal on a wall and shoot.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. But Halo is such a unique beast because it's like a really, I don't know, it's like a really fun story that at one point, specifically in the middle, gets like unnecessarily complex and really cool, with a like fantastic soundtrack, with first person and vehicle sandbox elements, and there's like a bunch of weird physics that you can take advantage of, and getting all of those together in one kind of cocktail is really not easy, I guess, because it just hasn't really been done in the same way. Oh, you just got.
I got got. The thing
the needler explosions.
The thing that gets me from what I'm playing now, again, super not a Halo expert, but it feels like something that makes this game really cool has been kind of like iterated on and bastardized in a lot of modern games, which is the like enemy stronghold. Like there'll be a big open map that you can drive around in, and then there will be a cluster of buildings, and that's your target. And then you'll go over there, and you'll do a thing there, and enemies will come at you. And I think the problem is that what I'm playing right now that feels like cool and interesting, but I've played 1,000 Ubisoft games that have been really boring. And I don't know what the difference is between how they do it and how this game does it,
Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely the most open one, because when they were originally making this, it was originally supposed to be an RTS. So the maps are very, very It was conceptualized as like a sequel to Myth, which was
really
one of Bungie's older older RTSs, and then they kind of like iterated on it, and then they made it a third-person shooter, and then they made it a first-person shooter a little bit closer towards the end. And that's why this one's designed so differently, and the play spaces are so big, even in comparison to later games, which I think like 2 and 3 are better, but they, this one definitely has the scale and the openness kind of locked in a way that's very different from modern games, and in the same way that Elden Ring kind of nailed it too, where it's like there's a scale, but it's not obfuscated by very video gamey elements.
Yeah, it doesn't
you have
pull
your
you
HUD.
out of the.
Yeah,
it doesn't pull you out of that like innate immersion of the Dark Souls games, where you just get plopped at the base of like fuck mountain, and you just look around and see all the towers you're going to die in later.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's then what makes a good
weird.
Halo game to you?
I think a sense of scale is cool. There are ways. So scale, an expressive physics system, and a good, and a sandbox that flexes more than just damage. Because I feel like a lot of video games, like you'll play a game where it's like, okay, here's a weapon, and this is a better weapon because it does damage, and and this is a better one because it does more damage. But in Halo, specifically 2 and 3, there are weapons that, this weapon is when you get the energy sword in Halo 2 or whatever, that thing has such a ridiculous lunge or range on it that it basically kind of becomes a grappling hook. Or there's like a weapon in Halo 3 where it's a grenade launcher, but if you shoot it at your feet, you can jump really high. So there's like a flexibility to weapons beyond just what they can do to an enemy, that makes it really cool. And obviously the physics of vehicles crashing into each other and exploding in midair.
Grenades setting ragdolls flying, which is pretty funny. The games are funny. They're not that serious. No, there's a tone there that's like a mix of it's serious, but it's not super like dire. It's not the fucking Last of Us. Yeah, no, that would be a touch. Fucking with Ellie, and then a grunt runs around with the.
Yeah, that'd be a hard sell. But yeah, there are little things that I'm still learning about this game still, because the physics sandbox is so fucking weird and robust. Like if you throw I don't know if it's necessarily in the first game, but once it gets into 2 and 3, you'll start to notice it, where like, if you throw a plasma grenade on the ground and then you throw another grenade over it, the explosion of the plasma grenade will will bounce the grenade further away, and then it'll also kind of set it off.
It does those in sequence, like you'll get like a chain like 2-shot there. That's really cool.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a mechanic. It's just a consequence of the physics. So it's not like you have to press a button at a specific time. It's just you literally just have to time the way that these physics elements interact in a clever way, and the game will reward you for it. And there's so many things like that. Like, I think even in this game, if you drive the Ghost and you hold, well, actually, I guess if you hold space, because you're playing on mouse and keyboard, right?
I am, yes. This game, this area does not look too bad in the remaster, I think. This is one of the better areas that I've seen with the remaster. Sorry, I hit tab accidentally because I've been playing Doom. I wanted to open the map, which makes
Yeah, no, it's cool. I agree largely with a lot of the complaints about the remaster. I think it's serviceable in some places, but I think it's pretty fucking ugly most of the time.
The lighting is what kicks it for me. The lighting feels pretty real in the original. It's like there's a light over there, so the light comes from the wall. But then if you take a look at the remaster, surfaces just seem to be innately lit.
It's like a soundstage.
Yeah, no, it's
really fucking weird.
Check out all these polygons, yo, and they put everything up front, which they love doing with modern games. They don't, because like they're terrified that somebody might miss a lot of expensive hard work, so it's like they can't risk you missing it. I like what you said about all of the games having their own, or sorry, all these weapons in the games having like their own expression, and use outside of just damage. I like the enemy AI to that as well, because I feel like everyone knows the example of like you throw a grenade on a grunt and it runs back to the elite and gets them both. Like that, that's a pretty like well-known interaction. But there's a lot of little things like that that require so much more thought than your standard like shoot the heads as they pop up behind cover thing that I'm really starting to appreciate now, I think.
Yeah, and in like in the later games, if you see like dropships flying overhead, you have a tank, you can shoot them down, and that'll result in like less for you to fight later. And like just really little things that kind of add up to being like, this is a fun game to fuck around and find, like, to just play with from a pure game standpoint.
Absolutely. Oh, apparently everything has been called now. Warnock has officially won in Georgia for the Senate runoff.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I hate that it had to be this close, but it got called earlier than I expected. I was actually thinking it'd be a bit closer, so that's good.
How close was it?
I think it's going to be a 51-49 margin, but winning by 2 points is not so bad. I mean, more than a half percentage point is good, I guess. Right now it's at 1.2, but it might end up being more by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are like, he doesn't know who that. I know who Warnock is. I'm not that detached from politics.
Oh God! But what a delight it would be to be, huh?
Oh yeah, I actually recently just I've been living in a pretty good state of bliss lately, but I think in the last like 2 months I've been paying more attention, and it's just like, oh man, I remember why I stopped, to be honest with you.
Difficult not to. It's a lot like modern media, right? Or like trying to a TV show or a video game is good or bad or whatever, in that it subsumes absolutely everything, Like before you know it, you're eating like a particular kind of breakfast cereal because on Twitter the guy who owns that food company said that your preferred candidate was red-pilled, and you're like, yes, I love owning the libs with my Weetabix or whatever, and it just becomes your entire life.
It's so wild that people will do things that literally only negatively affect them because of a false perception that other people care.
It's like the Goya bean shit. Did you follow any of that? Do you remember that? The Goya bean shit?
I do. I am Hispanic, so I do very much remember.
Oh my god! Owning the libs with my emergency like bunker filled with Goya beans. God.
Yeah, and they never fucking bought Goya beans before, but. That was a weird one because I remember being like, man, that sucks. Definitely still getting those beans though, because they're really pretty fucking solid.
I'm an S&W man personally with my beans.
That's fair. It's definitely a cultural. I'm just like my family has always used like Goya fucking like adobo and sazon. It's like very, very Caribbean, Puerto Rican seasonings and ingredients that I could, I guess, swap, but it would just look. I'm not a natural cook. I gotta go where I can. All right, and my muscle memory is where I go. Yeah, and I'm not gonna mix it up too much.
Also, like the liberal consumerist obsession with boycotting as a means of expressing moral virtue is really fucking tiring. You know, like
it's fucking insane because there's so little that you would be able to do if you were trying to live a completely ethical life. Like you would not be playing video games because your PCs or consoles would be sourced in fucking, you know, prison factories in China. There's all sorts of shit that you wouldn't be able to take part in if you were consistently like, you know, like really, really morally committed to this idea that like, okay, well, I won't do this anymore, even though there's no real reason not to. Like, do you really think that you not buying a beans is gonna really do anything?
Good luck avoiding Nestle, you know, when you're at the grocery store.
Well, also there's just like, I feel like boycotting is a very, I get it from like a personal standpoint, I guess, if you know, I do that with certain things, I suppose, but like SNK, like, do you know, are you familiar with SNK?
Shingeki no
they make so they make they're a developer. They make the King, I think it's King of Fighters games. They also make Metal Slug.
Oh, well, I certainly know Metal Slug. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were recently purchased by the Saudi royal family. Like,
oh, that's fun.
And I love Metal Slug, but that is one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I would feel necessarily all that comfortable buying a game if I knew that the money was going directly to people who, you know, murder journalists.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's totally okay to do that. The weird thing to me is when people start getting really demanding about others doing it. Because we're always right on one thing and wrong on like 599 when it comes to this. And it's like there's I don't know how well anyone can live like that on like an applicable scale. It's good to do what you can, you know, but like at the end of the day, the most you could do wouldn't be like boycotting. It would be probably supporting politicians that would restrict the kind of behaviors that you would take issue with, you know?
No, exactly. And the other, well, the thing I was going to say before I sidetracked my fucking self was just the idea that I feel like boycotting as a premise is a very antiquated kind of notion because it operates under the assumption that like a lot of the companies and corporations that are being boycotted aren't massive global conglomerates. You know, like I don't know how much like if your store was being boycotted in like the 1940s because you were doing some shady shit and then the town just didn't want to support you anymore, you were pretty much fucked.
Because it was that store in that location. Yeah, like the Montgomery the bus boycotts back in the South were the civil rights protests. Like it was like those specific areas, you know. You can do something there. Right,
exactly. But like with Walmart, like what do you like I do, like the assumption that it does damage is a very bizarre one. Like I understand if you like ethically like I said, like it makes perfect sense why you would ethically not want to support certain things, but the insistence that it's this insanely like effective means of hurting whatever it is you're trying to hurt. I just don't know if I really buy that in the age that we live in.
Well, I think it's an effective means for some people of feeling good about themselves. You know, it's a lot like recycling, in the sense that it's good to do if you can. Well, no, it's good to do if you can, but you don't want to be the kind of person where, like, because you've done that, you think like, okay, I can stop thinking about this now because I'm on the good side.
Well, I laugh because I remember because I obviously I live in LA, and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's so sad. But I remember specifically because I worked in Santa Monica for a little bit, and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. But I would remember seeing like these trash cans that would have like it would be like a normal cylinder, but there would be a divider in the middle, and it would be like kind of like a semicircle hole on either side, and it would be trash and recycling. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I would look in, and there's no divider in the can.
It's one can, yeah.
It's literally just one hole that you're just throwing everything into. And it's just like, this is fucking astounding.
That's offensive right there. That's like deeply morally wrong. Just not even for the like fake recycling thing, but just like the audacity of being that forward about it is hurtful.
Yeah, it's really abrasive, and really like, it's really brazen is what it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. I guess it shows like how little it takes to tide some people over when it comes to shit like that. Anyway, as long as they don't get super self-satisfied, that's the main issue, I guess. Like, if somebody wants to boycott or go vegan or recycle, I think that's great, you know? It's just...
100%.
Yeah, they have to be able after that to go like, yeah, but I know it's all, like, one company, and nothing's going to change unless we also do this and that.
Yeah, no, the vegan thing is... I wish I could do that. I can't. I can't. I do acknowledge, I do feel like it's definitely the right thing. Like, I don't know if I could really argue with a vegan on, like, the morality of it. Because it seems pretty staunchly... It seems pretty fucking stacked. Like, one-sided as far as, like, what's the more moral way to live.
It's a clean sell ethically, yeah.
It's a pretty clean sell ethically. However, bacon... Or... You know, like I've had vegan pizza, and I will never do that again.
Some vegan food has gotten a lot better. For me, I think the main thing for me is like availability, right? Like right now, I just don't think I could go vegan. But if I could snap my fingers and get rid of all animal production, like magically, just like replace all those industries with solar farms or whatever, I think in the new world where there's no way to not be vegan, I would be just as happy as I am now, or happier. Probably a lot healthier too. The problem is like with it being around, you know? It's about how well the world accommodates you, you know? Like we need cars to get around in America. Most people do at least. But if you had a world with no cars, it wouldn't just be the same world where everyone's forced to use a bike. They would build the world with the bike in mind. They would build the world with...
Yeah. No, I was tweeting about this recently, and I caught some shit for it because I was just complaining. I was just talking about how fucked certain infrastructure is, and how like I resent the fact that so many cities across this country are built with the implication that everybody has a car, everybody needs a car. And I found these like Twitter accounts that like kind of document like older cities and like how they used to look like and how they look like now.
Suicide
and it's like
fuel.
it's just all fucking highways, and it's so depressing. And I don't know.
No, it's really funny you say that, because just the other day, I was going over some Google Street View shit to show like, well, my grandparents live in Florida, right? And it's in like suburban areas that are so car dependent, there's not even a sidewalk. Like you just have to walk on asphalt if you want to walk, which why would you? And there were Europeans in chat. I assume they're Europeans. And they're like, well, what do you do if you don't have a car? And the only answer to that is you get one. That's it. You don't there isn't an if. You don't there's not a second option. There are no buses that run there. You have a car or you don't go anywhere. And that's it. That's what you get.
It really is insane. Like it's because like, I grew up in New York, so, like, when I was a kid, I just sort of lived in a very, very walkable place. Or if it wasn't walkable, there was always a bus or a train that would take you wherever you needed to go. And growing up, that was just kind of my assumption of, like, oh, that's what a city is. Like, I thought that was the difference between the city and the country, was cities have great public transit and infrastructure. and like, the outskirts is where you go, and everybody has a truck, and there's, like, nothing. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I was like, what? There's no public transit at all. Like, I moved out here, fortunately, around the time that Uber was a thing. So, like, that was really convenient for me, I guess. But, like, like, what did people do before Uber? Like, what the fuck did people do in Los Angeles before Uber?
People would call taxis at exorbitant cost, and that was it. It was I grew up in LA. I grew up in Beverly Hills. And back then they hadn't even remodeled the bus lines that run along Olympic and Wilshire and a few others like Pico. Back then it was even worse than it is now. There are huge parts of LA where it is literally like if you don't have a car, you might as well be living in a cloud city without a helicopter or a plane. You know, it is as inaccessible.
No, I know people are saying taxis, but it's like, look, man, taxis are not like in New York. Obviously, taxis are huge and like they're kind of everywhere. But I think, I don't know, just the idea of like calling a taxi like every single time. And just having like this, I don't know. It
No,
seems
it's not
like
viable.
a lot.
You can hail a taxi in New York. There's nowhere to hail a taxi in LA. You call one and give them an address and wait there, and it's very expensive.
It's
There's
just
no
a shitty.
visit.
It's just a worse Uber. So like, I don't know. It's really frustrating to me. Because I have a car and I like it, but I also resent the fact that I need it. Like I would gladly get rid of it if it wasn't so fucking astoundingly necessary.
Yeah, and there's just nothing. Yeah, no. I mean, I completely agree. I grew up in LA. You know, I mean, my folks would drive me places if I needed to go somewhere. But the idea of that being a necessary thing is insane to begin with, because LA is one of the like largest population centers on the planet. The idea of, oh, we need to get somewhere, we need a car, is insane. You should be able to go outside and trip on something to do out there. But no, you can't. It's there's so many fucking people. Like when I looked up, I was recently just out of sheer curiosity looking up like populations of different like cities and states and shit. And I can't remember exactly what LA's was, but it was like it's definitely several million. And I looked up out of curiosity like Wyoming, and I think it's like 500,000 people in the entire state. Yeah, LA County has 13 million people in it. It's one of the largest urban centers or urban areas, sprawls. I don't know what the technical term is. In the world, the city itself, I think, is about 3 million, but everything extends past the city borders.
Yeah,
no one counts it, and the mayor, has control anyway. But you know, if you want to get anywhere, you'd either be better be ready to walk like a mile in any direction.
I've done it. I've walked like. I'm used to walking pretty far, but
it sucks to walk in LA though.
Yeah, LA's a different kind of like, it's one thing in New York where there's like constantly something like that you could like we're walking. It's not like you're walking through a purely residential place for fucking miles, or there's a place where there's like no gas stations or convenience shops anywhere.
Yeah, at least in like a real city like New York and parts of Seattle, which is one of the reasons I like it.
Seattle is the only other place that I've been to that feels like that feels more like a proper city.
I feel the same way. Not as dense as New York by far, but definitely a step in the right direction from what I grew up in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what, I don't know. I feel like it's generally what a city should be, as far as like, obviously not like culturally, like that could be whatever the fuck, or food wise, like that. But I do think public transit is a kind of an obvious fucking thing to focus on when you're building a fucking city.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it is like direct collusion with car manufacturers and how much of it is just like the infrastructure version of capitalist realism, where you elect politicians and they like actually can't fathom an alternative. I think that's one of the big issues, because all of the like city councilors in a place like Los Angeles are these 80-year-olds that are independently wealthy that drive into the city. Like for fun, but they live in the suburbs. So to them, like, car culture shit is just fully the norm, and they can't fathom anything else.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. New York culture unmatched. Hey, man, you guys are getting a taste of it now with all this this Kanye West stuff.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks.
What is it? The oh man, what are they called? The Black Israelites or whatever?
Yeah, Black Hebrew Israelites.
I remember seeing that when I was a kid, like just randomly, like in train stations and shit. And I remember being like, "Dad, what's that?" And my dad would be like, I have no fucking idea.
No fucking idea what they're going on about, son.
And so like now it's explode. Now I've seen it on Twitter now for the first time, really. Like I would see sparks of it from like people from back home, but now that it's actually like exploding, it's kind of, I'm very curious as to how that's going to be received.
Yeah, the really frustrating thing is those guys are kind of basically Nazis.
Oh yeah.
The frustrating thing is that white liberals are terrible at criticizing anything that's phrased as progressivism. So all a black Hebrew Israelite has to do is like, we are freeing ourselves from their colonizing force as we, take back our national right and our heritage and shit. And like white liberals are like sweating profusely because they can't, you know what I mean? Like they don't. Yeah. It's kind of funny to watch. It's also like very like dangerous, I guess, that their ideology is that weak that even like Blitler, like Black Hitler shit, would be difficult for them to criticize.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of I shouldn't bring that up actually, but there was a, because I remember there was a Black Hitler a long time ago, like on like or a colloquial Black Hitler, like on YouTube, like it was like a nickname for the I can't remember the person's name. They were fucking crazy.
Were they a Black Hebrew Israelite?
I don't know. I don't. Oh yeah. Somebody said Ghazi Codes.
Oh, I almost had an interview with him once. Yeah.
What? Wait, you had an interview with him?
I almost did. I turned it down because he's a huge attention seeker with the Black Hammer cult. I think he got arrested recently because somebody died at his cult manor.
Oh my god.
Under suspicious circumstances. Yeah.
Oh my god.
He's a wacky guy.
What a feller.
Yeah, what a lad.
He's a wacky guy, let me tell you.
It's like trauma shit. I don't know. People get into that kind of stuff out of fear mostly. Like it's the same with the real Nazis. Like go to any real life Nazi today, like some white guy or whatever. They're not doing all right, they're pissing.
Yeah, it's all fear, yeah.
And in the case of black people, right? Like at least the fear is rooted in something for real, With white people, like, oh, the Jews are going to destroy. No, they're not. Shut the fuck up. With black people, like, you take a read on history, the idea they might be afraid of some kind of like national or like ethnic purge or whatever, I don't think it's going to happen. I get the fear, but it's like a trauma thing, Like they run to that when they lose faith in integration, I think. Like they lose faith in the idea that white and black people can ever live together. So they run to that as like so we have to defend ourselves. We have to take that final step,
It's just such it's so difficult for me to inhabit that headspace though. Like I feel like I meet a lot of people and I can, generally speaking, I can understand on a fundamental level like what it is like to think from their perspective, because I can draw a line of reasoning that, while I wouldn't agree with, I can at least manufacture a reasonable through line from point A to point B, But I can't with this stuff, like the whole Kanye thing. Like I just don't understand how this happens.
Kanye, he's fucking insane. That's so far off.
He's unmedicated and losing his mind. But I mean, the people who, because there are people who support him, like I think Ben Shapiro tweeted something about like trying to distance himself from him, and like there are a bunch of people being like, no, I agree. No, he's speaking truth to power, and it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we are certainly not living in great times when it comes to feeling like people have a handle on their sanity, The idea that that's something we should take for granted has pretty much been well dispelled at this point. The most sympathetic version of this whole like Black Hebrew Israelite Kanye shit that I can think of is back in the early 20th century, the big split in terms of like radical black activism, like during the Jim Crow era and shit. It was basically like, okay, is it gonna work out here, or do we go back to Africa and like make it work there? Because white people fucking hate us, like what is like, is there even a shot? And it was like a huge argument. And basically like the leader of the We Should Go Back people was Marcus Garvey. he was a Pan-Africanist and a fascist. And he wanted all black people to return to Africa to form like a united continent that could like compete with white colonialism. And he worked with the Ku Klux Klan and like white citizen council groups because they also didn't want black people in America. So he thought like they all wanted to like share in the messaging of like we're not meant to go together, you know? And that's the closest like analogy that I can draw, I guess, from history for what we're seeing right now, you know?
Yeah, I mean that makes, at least there's something there, but I don't know. I still.
No, I'm not saying I'm sympathetic.
No,
I'm
I understand. I understand. I love that you have to be so careful.
It's crazy. It's insane, and they're all fucking Nazis too. I feel really bad for Jewish people because that anti-Semitism shit came back like fucking. Oh my god, like very loud, very public.
Yeah, it did kind of. This goes back to our conversation about franchises that can't die.
Yeah,
you know?
the greatest franchise of them all.
Yeah, anti-Semitism.
It's holy. They've been doing 4,000 years and counting, man. I'm so tired of this series.
Oh man, rehashing the same plots over and over again. God damn.
Oh, they control the world. Dude, you already built the Death Star. They already did this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's
Fuck, I just died again. This bridge is so hard. Oh my god.
It's a difficult bridge.
Jesus Christ.
All right. Well,
oh yeah, I kept you for so long. I really appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, I didn't realize how long it had been, to be honest. I got lost. No, thanks for having me on. I hope you get past this bridge.
Yeah. That'd be great. I did advertise it as the Halo trilogy for the 24-hour stream. It's been a delight to talk to you, man.
Yeah, same to you. One thing I would recommend going forward, not necessarily through this, because this is admittedly one of my lesser revisited titles. But when you get to Halo 2, don't feel compelled. You don't have to play it on heroic. The difficulty in that game is really fucked. You could if you want, but it's, you do what you want.
Chat would not let me have it. I'll keep that. I need that appraisal, because now if I do take that final lurch, I'll feel somewhat justified in doing so.
Yeah, play heroic if you want. You feel like if you feel like it's fucked, you can switch it. But like, I personally think that game is like, that's one of my favorite games ever, and I think it's honestly most fun on normal because it just kind of gives you the freedom to fuck around and do all the ridiculous shit that I love the games for,
and not hide behind a wall and peek out every time the shield comes. Yeah, the infinite run around.
I mean, Charlie Moist Critical had that whole challenge about like beating Halo 2 on Legendary with all the difficulty modifiers on, and it took a lot. It took thousands of people like 3 weeks to do it. So it's.
I remember that. Yeah, fucking hard game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy, but appreciate the invite, and yeah, I'll probably be tuning on.
Oh, literally anytime, man. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Pleasure to speak to you again.
You too, man.
Take care.
All right, take care.
That was really nice. I love it. Oh, 12,000, by the way. Well done, guys. Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah, I really like talking to Chris. I hope I can